Hi, shalom friends. You know, of the five senses, tasting, touching, smelling, hearing, and seeing, probably smelling is the one that's least appreciated. Even though wherever we go, we're actually surrounded by fragrances and smells. The only time we really begin to truly appreciate it is when we have a stuffed nose, or God forbid, one of these diseases, and now that we don't smell, there's no food, nothing tastes, we don't have an appetite, etc. Or when we have a disagreeable smell, then everyone's quite aware of it. But we often minimize the importance of smell. Actually, we're born with a keen sense of smell. Even newborns, they claim, can recognize their mother, or the nursing mother, by the sense of smell. So let me tell you a story, traditional story about a rabbi who both appreciated the sense of smell as well as the other senses. Story goes, in one of the villages, there lived a poor Jew whose name was Beryl, and literally he lived day by day. There was no savings, and he was thankful to God that every single day he was able to have something to eat. And essentially his diet, his lunch, was black bread, and occasionally with butter, sometimes just plain black bread. You could understand day after day the monotony of this grated on him. Why can't I taste real bread, white bread, you know? And to have a pastry, that was just a dream. What compounded his sadness and his anxiety was that very often he would pass the baker. And the baker, to him, that fragrance smelled like the Garden of Paradise. He could smell the richness of bread and butter. He could smell the richness of a pastry, of a Danish, of a cake. And he could only look with envy at the people that would come in and buy. But the smell was heavenly. Until finally one day he thought of a plan. And that was, why do I have to eat my lunch in a place where there is no smell? Let me eat my bread and water outside, opposite the bakery. And what he would do is, he would inhale deeply the sweet fragrance of freshly baked pastries. He would close his eyes and eat his black bread. But in his mind, smelling the smell made the bread taste like the pastry. Now, the baker, who was not known to be a very nice person, we'll call him Shmuel, used to see this fellow Beryl outside, opposite the bakery, eating his bread. He went over to him and said, can you tell me why every single day you insist on eating your bread opposite my bakery? He said, yeah, I don't mind telling you. He said, your bakery smells like paradise. There's such good, wonderful fragrances, but I can't afford to buy it. So what I do is, I smell the fragrance and I taste the taste when I eat my bread. Well, Shmuel got very offended. What? You're tasting my bakery without buying from me? You're a thief. And Beryl looks at him in surprise. I didn't take anything from you. I'm just smelling the fragrance. It just goes out. It's just natural. Anyone could smell it. No, you're a thief, Mr. Beryl. Because if you taste a taste of my pastries in your bread, that means you're taking something. And now Beryl gets indignant. Don't call me a thief. You are a thief. Until finally someone says, 1 second, what are you guys arguing about? Why don't you go to the rabbi? So they go to the rabbi of the town. The rabbi was a wise man. And when they both came in, he says to Beryl, can you tell me why you're here? He says, Rabbi, I don't know why I'm here. This man, looking at the baker, accuses me of being a thief, and I'm not a thief. So the rabbi looks at the baker. Shmuel, why are you here? Rabbi, he's stealing from me. What's he stealing? he's stealing the smells of my bakery. It gives him pleasure. And as a result, he owes me money. The rabbi looked very carefully at Shmuel and realized that this man needs to be taught a lesson. He has no sympathy for the poor. Instead, he seems to be very, very self-centered. So he says to Beryl, and what do you say? Do you enjoy the smells? He says, Rabbi, I enjoy the smells very, very much. It's not the same as eating it, but I enjoy it. And Shmuel says, you see, Rabbi, even he admits that he enjoys the smells. He's taking from me. So the rabbi said, okay, let me think about this for a moment. He comes back after a couple of minutes. He says, I've decided that Shmuel has a claim against you, Beryl. But I know you cannot afford to pay anything, so I'll pay on your behalf. And he looks at Shmuel and he says, Shmuel, you know, it's not only he has pleasure from one of your pastries, he actually has pleasure from all of your pastries. So how much do you think would all of your pastries and breads cost? He said, I don't know, Rebbe, maybe a ruble and a half. He says, you're a luck. I actually have 3 half rubles or something to that effect. And he takes out these 3 coins and he says, Shmuel, watch. He takes 1 coin, drops it on the table. Takes the 2nd coin, drops it on the table. The 3rd coin, drops it on the table. He says, okay, Shmuel, these are the 3 coins that you deserve. Well, as soon as Shmuel takes his hand to take it, the Rebbe says, you already paid. He says, Rebbe, what do you mean I was already paid? The coins are on the table. All I heard was the clanging of the coins. To which the rabbi said, if a smell means he took something from you, then you hearing means he gave it to you. Shmuel understood the lesson. That you don't charge a person for smelling the air. The same way you wouldn't charge a person for broadcasting and hearing something in the street. Now, it's a traditional story. Some would consider it cute. Some would consider it actually maybe legal. But I want to point out, you know, smell triggers memory. It's a reality that when you have when an event takes place with a smell, very often, years later, smelling that same form of fragrance will trigger the memory. And it's interesting about listening. You know, you could have 2 things that taste almost alike. Touch, very similar. But it's interesting, if you hear a song and you like it, and then you hear another song, you say, and the guy says, is that the song you like? You say, no. And you could hear 1,000 songs, all very similar, and you might say, no, that's not the one. It's very similar, it's not the one. And then you hear, that's the one. There's a preciseness in hearing and a clarity in hearing that perhaps you don't get from any other sense. And this is how I want to conclude today's thought with you. There was a time when in the Holy Temple, where God smelled the fragrance of the offerings. That smell is very clear and vivid in the eyes of God. And God heard the singing and the playing of the Levites. Without a doubt, God has not yet heard the exact replica of that beautiful sacred music. I believe that these 2 senses, amongst many others, Hashem hungers for. He wishes to hear and smell the temple of old. So let's hope and pray. It's in God's hands, not only ours. Let's celebrate the rebuilding of the 3rd temple, where the sweet smell of the offerings and the beautiful music of the Levites will be heard once again.